Okay. All right. Well, it's 6 o'clock. Welcome, City of Port St. Lucie residents. My name is Georgette Beck, and I am the Keep Port St. Lucie Beautiful Program Supervisor. We're so excited to be hosting our very first virtual America's Recycle Day presentation. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Throughout the year, Keep Port St. Lucie Beautiful, along with our affiliates from Keep Florida Beautiful and Keep America Beautiful, take time to educate folks about the importance of litter prevention, improving recycling, and beautification. You may or may not already know this, but November 15th is known as the America's Recycle Day around the globe. And we spent special time this month focusing on just the recycling concept. So tonight, oops, all right, there we go. We have a full agenda. We have a wonderful guest speaker, Mr. Damian Carsons from Repurposed Materials. And at the end of our presentation, Alexandra Tasca from our Neighborhood Improvement and Community Engagement Division of the city is going to talk a bit. So lots of benefits to recycling. What's it mean? It means taking something old and turning it into something new. And there are plenty benefits from recycling as listed here. And so some of the words also included when we talk about recycling is reducing, reusing, and repurposing. So reduce means to find ways to decrease using it or lessen. For example, if I'm going to use my this metal water cup versus plastic bottle, I'm decreasing use of the plastic. So reuse means finding ways over and over of how to use something different. That's just a brief definition, basic definition of recycling. But back to Keep Port St. Lucie Beautiful. So our mission of engaging individuals to take greater responsibility for improving their community environments directly correlates with our city's strategic plan, priority objective, goal number 1, safe, clean, and beautiful. And nobody wants to live in a messy, dirty community where the streets are lined with trash and our green areas are just, full of different debris and garbage. Our health depends on a clean community. Water with trash sitting in it becomes contaminated. And unfortunately, when that water evaporates, it goes into the air, and then that trash is now in the air and we're breathing that. So even the smallest source of litter, which actually is the number 1 form of litter, cigarette butts, are very dangerous. They contain chemicals that contaminate the water and soil. And it takes about 18 months to 10 years to decompose, depending on the conditions. So our city has a really strong foundation right now. We've got a lot of good things in place and we're growing really fast. So now's the time to set the tone to ensure a good, keep our good firm foundation strong for years to come. So the plan that the city manager tasked Keep Port St. Lucie Beautiful to collaborate with our fellow city departments is called LEAP, Litter Eradication Action Plan. And it's comprised of 5 components: education, awareness, infrastructure, partnership, enforcement, and incentives. One without the other will not work. And this is some just brief history of us. How did we, come about? Public Works 32 years ago was formed in the city, and they were the main ones to keep the city clean and pick up litter and garbage and things like that. Then they formed the Adopt a Street program, and then we came to be in 2001. So this coming up year, we're celebrating 20 years and we're really excited about it. We also have a litter hotline in place that residents can call anytime to report litter. So like I said, we are affiliates of the Keep Florida Beautiful, Keep America Beautiful, and we have a 9-member volunteer committee, which one of our committee members, or 2 of them, are actually represented here tonight in our meeting. And like I said, we have a lot of programs and services, and we run a lot of events. So one of the several events, tree giveaways, household hazardous waste collection day, where folks can drop off those household hazardous items. A lot of them are repurposed, most are safely disposed of, and then some are brought to the landfill. But again, we try to keep those hazardous items out of the landfill, and we try to keep a lot of other just components out of the landfill in general so that we make better use of them. So this is our city's Adopt a Street program. It's a volunteer program, and we have over 167 groups right now. So we're really excited about that. They make a huge impact in our city to keep it clean and beautiful. And our largest event is a cleanup day event. Over 300 folks usually come out. We've been doing that for 25 something years. And America's Recycle Day. We celebrate it every year. We try to think of fun things to engage our community. And these past few years, we really engaged with our youth, and the Buddy Bench project came about. The kids collected 200 pounds of plastic caps to have a bench made, and the caps were melted down and they had a Buddy Bench. And we had over 13 schools that partnered with us on it, and they collected almost 3,000 caps. So a lot of good things. So one of the other ways that we help to recycle, repurpose is we are partnering with Call to Recycle. We've been doing it for years. We make it very easy for you residents to drop off your chargeable batteries and use cell phones. And that box is located in City Hall. And this past year, we collected almost 37 pounds of items, and we kept those things out of the landfill. Now, we do have a single stream recycling in the city. We partner with the county, and it's that green bin, and you can put a whole bunch of items in there. Something you cannot put in that bin is plastic bags. And we're happy to say we've partnered with the county for the WRAP program. And there's locations throughout the city and the county that you can go drop off your plastic bags and plastic items as listed there. So these are just some of the ways that we help recycle and keep our landfill as empty as possible. Now, to the best part of tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing a guest speaker that's received national acclaim and received much press attention. Several articles have been written about him. As you can see here, he was in the Oprah magazine, the Dallas Morning News, and Chicago Tribune, among some. Ditch your view of a throwaway society. In this greener era, a growing trade finds uses for any hunk of junk. Chicago Tribune is quoted. So our guest speaker is the founder and president of Repurposed Materials. He brings a unique, fresh take on the hot topics of sustainability and zero waste. Would you please welcome Damian Carson? And I am going to pass the baton over to Damian, and hopefully I did that correctly.
Well, let's see here. I probably so. Are you seeing me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Except I'm not forwarding. There we go. We're going to start with the magic show to introduce the concept. So we're going to start with big mining tires. These are in the Western United States. Can be 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall. So 10 feet tall is, of course, is as tall as a basketball goal, just like a regular car tire. This is a wear part, so the tread runs out. What do you do with these gigantic tires at end of life other than landfill? A little hocus pocus. You slice them in half like a bagel. You fill that center hole with concrete, fill it up with water, and you have a stock tank, a water tank for cattle out on the range that will last multiple generations. So again, obsolete to primary industry, gets a second life in the cattle pasture. Next up, this is Cal Berkeley. Huge gym floor, depending on the athletic facility, every 10, 15 years, they replace these. Typically, the tongue and groove maple with all the fun logos and abbreviations is just cut up and discarded to the landfill. Can't be composted because of the varnishes on the gym floor. A little hocus pocus, cut it out into these 4x8 sheets. And again, sold this to a contractor. They took it apart board by board and then whimsically reinstalled it on the feature wall, back wall of this restaurant. As you can see the 3-point lines, the out of bounds lines are all mismatched to give it kind of a fun look. Again, kind of a fun customer for us. This is Michael Jordan's newest restaurant in Chicago. So again, obviously it's very fitting for him since he made his millions and his fame on the hardwoods of America. Another one, this is a fun one. So this is obviously a street sweeper, very common. So what we're talking about is the red bristled brush between the axles. This is a wear part. They start out about 36 inches in diameter. And as it flicks dirt all day, it just slowly gets a little smaller. When it's about 22, 24 inches, it's too small. So they discard it. Interestingly, it's a steel pipe and it has the plastic bristles. So the steel recyclers aren't interested in it because of that steel pipe. The steel recyclers aren't interested in it because of the plastic bristles. It's kind of one of those hard to recycle items. Contaminated, though it's not contaminated with nasty stuff. Contaminated, meaning it's mixed recyclables and neither entity wants it. But what do? Hocus pocus, they become back scratchers for livestock. So we sell these to dairies, to cattle ranches. In fact, Ted Turner, founder of CNN, is the largest bison owner in America. He just bought a truckload from us, I don't know, probably 6 months ago, and they just sit them out in the pastures, and the bison, instead of tearing up the trees, tearing up the fences, they scratch on these discards of the street departments of America. So again, it's all about thinking outside the box, but those are big industrial things. Let's go back to when you were in preschool, or you were a preschooler, or you had grandkids. The Quaker Oats cylinder, cardboard cylinder, first life, it was meant to take oatmeal from factory to home. But at end of life, when the last oatmeal was poured out, did you ever just throw it in the recycle bin? As an enterprising kid, probably did something with it. Of course, you can make a drum, all kinds of things you can do with it. Similarly, a big refrigerator comes to your house when you're a little kid. Heavy cardboard box, first life, was meant to protect high value appliance from factory to retail store to home. Again, did it ever go right in the recycle bin? Hocus pocus. Make a fort, a playhouse, etc. So what is interesting is, while we started with mining tires, street sweeper brushes, it's really that same mentality that allows a preschooler to repurpose things like these cardboard examples I give. What's interesting in America is, because of the wealth, the abundance in our country, it's just like we quit repurposing, even though these are two evidences that that innate gene lies in all of us. So again, Georgette talked about reduce, reuse, recycle. What we are not is, we're not recycling. We refer to recycling as chip it, shred it, grind it, melt it. Again, nothing wrong with that. Absolutely a place for it, but that's not what we do. We're on the reuse side of the famous triangle. Typical reuse is a boat, a forklift, and a refrigerator. There's a secondary market for all three, but in a second life, a boat stays a boat, a forklift stays a forklift, and a refrigerator stays a refrigerator, because, as we say, they're specialized. Again, you can't really repurpose a forklift. It kind of is what it is. Repurposing is a cousin, I guess you would say, of the reuse. With repurposing, though, it gets a very different second life. So let's talk about some familiar repurposes. Any wine drinkers on the conference right now? A little hocus pocus. You slice it in half and it becomes a planter that you can buy at Lowe's, Home Depot, etc. And again, absolutely a repurpose, but it's so common, you don't really think about, hey, all that, those steel bands, all that oak wood, the staves as they call them, that was not originally designed as a flour container. It was really originally designed to store and age wine. This is a good one for you coastal people. What happens to old tires as a repurpose in a second life? They get used as dock fenders, bumpers. Again, I sit in Denver, Colorado. I'm looking out at my window at the beautiful Rocky Mountains. Again, this is a little bit unfamiliar, but you in coastal regions, this is very common. But again, it's not why Michelin and Goodyear created the tires. It just has happened for decades and decades and decades that they make a great second life, dock, bumper, pier, tugboats, etc. Of all the new rage in the last, 10, 15 years is these big 20-foot, 40-foot ocean containers. HGTV has done great things with them to popularize them as tiny houses. So again, obsolete to the shipping company for whatever reason. It gets a second life, doesn't go right to the recycler to be melted down as scrap metal, but you give them a second life as these tiny houses. So those three are ones that I would call familiar repurposes, almost so familiar that you may not even really think of as repurposes because they're so common. Now we're going to go into less common repurposes. So these are the big highway signs, 14 by 48, huge signs, Budweiser, Chevrolet, Coca-Cola. What's interesting, it's printing. Obviously, you can see the Daily Double in this particular picture. That's just heavy duty waterproof vinyl that a picture is printed on. Of course, the advertising industry is interested in the picture, we as repurposes are interested in the substrate, the PVC coated vinyl. Hocus Pocus, they make a great tarp material. Again, waterproof, and yes, you're going to have a picture on it, but it's waterproof. We repurpose these for hay tarps. Any parent, grandparent can be an All-American. You put this on the side of a hill, run a hose up there, and it's a slip and slide for hours and hours of fun and entertainment. Again, a cast off of the advertising industry, makes a great slip and slide for kids. Aluminum bleachers, probably many in the audience have sat at a baseball game or some kind of outdoor venue. Again, a lot of times these get torn down because of ADA accessibility. They get remade, and of course it's America, so we got to have the latest and the greatest. Well, these aluminum planks, of course, are aluminum, as I just said. They can get, chopped into 3-foot lengths and melted down to make beer cans out of or whatever. But again, reuse. Could these be reused, repurposed, instead of simply recycled? Hocus Pocus. This is a interior office, and they used these aluminum bleachers as architectural wall cladding. So again, a great repurpose. And again, rather than melting it all down, use it as a design feature in this case. These are military cargo parachutes. So these are not parachutes that drop the actual infantrymen. These are the big jumbo parachutes that drop things like Jeeps and tanks and rations, big pallets of heavy rations to the ground. Typically, they're 32 feet, 64 feet, and 100 feet in diameter. So massive amounts of material. And again, safety thing, they only get deployed a couple of times, and then the DOD, the Department of Defense, retires them. Well, what happens to them? No natural recycling. You can't chip it, shred it, grind it, melt it, this fabric. So what happens to these? Again, little hocus pocus, make a great shade canopy at an outdoor event. In fact, we often joke that, and it's not a joke, it's true, one of the biggest customers of big retired military cargo parachutes is actually brides for backyard weddings. They'll string these up in the tree, run Christmas lights in them. So it's a big jumbo shade canopy for backyard weddings. So these would fit into the classification and probably less familiar repurposes, but still just as practical as the first ones, the wine barrels, the tires, and the ocean containers. So how do we get these wild and crazy repurposing ideas? I have a little insomnia problem. I have a stack of trade journals that I read, and as it says upper left, substitutionary thinking. So what I do is I like to flip through these trade journals targeted at various specific industries, in this case, wire, rope, news, and sling technology. Probably most of you in the audience never even knew this magazine existed, but it's an industrial magazine. And I look at an ad. So what's interesting is here's a sling guard protector. So this is a sock or a sleeve that you protect a high value chain or cable or whatever. In this case, you see it's holding probably a 4,000 to 10,000 pound roll of steel coil. And again, you don't want to cutting up the high dollar sling. So you put this sock or sleeve over it. This company manufactures it new. Where in America are thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of feet of heavy, durable, round sock sleeve type materials being landfilled every year? And again, if we were live, I'd be asking for people to chime in, but as the case is, fire hose. Decommissioned fire hose is landfilled by the thousands of feet across America. You could have a pinhole in it and be decommissioned because of performance issues, or in a lot of cases, especially the bigger the city, they say every 5 years, we'll take all the hose off and throw it away. Yesterday, we would have fought a 5-alarm fire with that hose, but it's 5 years, and take it off the truck and let's put on some brand new hose. But again, tough jacketed material, you cut it into 3-foot, 6-foot, 9-foot lengths, and you get a substitute as this sling guard protector. So again, that's kind of the repurposing mindset. Here's another fun magazine that probably most of you didn't know existed. You all like your fried chicken, you all like your eggs at breakfast. Well, there's a whole magazine, a whole industry, obviously poultry growing and growers. It's hard to see because it's small, but in here is nest pad. It's called Durapad in the ad, and it's literally 1.5-inch plastic shag carpeting that they lay under the hens' cages. So when she lays her egg, it kind of drops, and that provides a cushiony drop pad, I guess you would say, so the eggs don't crack. Simple enough. Where in America are hundreds of thousands of feet, millions of square feet of 1.5-inch plastic shag carpeting being ripped up and thrown away? Any football fans in the audience? Athletic turf. So the new generation of turf is just that, 1.5-inch plastic shag carpeting. Average football field is about 90,000 square feet. When they add the rubber infill to give it its playability, that is on average 500,000 pounds. 15 to 20 truckloads every time they replace a football field ends up going to the landfill. And again, we're not saying this will work as nest pad, but we're saying it has a lot of the same characteristics. Like I said, 1.5 inch plastic shag carpeting. So again, upper left, substitutionary thinking is kind of the mindset you want to get into. And what's fun is, as I speak around the country, people sometimes will ask, and I'll save this for the Q&A so nobody has to ask it and embarrass themselves, Damon, did you invent repurposing? Well, that would be an insult to our forefathers. But so let's take a look at some historical examples of repurposing. So we're going to go wartime. This is World War II. We already talked about parachutes, but interestingly, so the GIs were parachuting into Italy to fight in World War II. At whatever point Mussolini surrendered, all the GIs left, and they left behind hundreds, thousands of these parachutes. Okay, what did the enterprising farmer in Italy decide to do with this? Well, you have to think about what is a common farm crop in Italy. Well, it's olives. So they would cut these, slit these to the middle, drape them around an olive tree, just kind of like a tree skirt around a Christmas tree. They would shake the trees, all the olives would fall into this parachute, and it just made collection that much faster. So again, first life, it was meant to be a parachute. Second life, enterprising Italian farmers would cut it, modify it slightly, and use it as a catch basin for olive trees when they would harvest olives. Now let's jump ahead, little history lesson, jump ahead 2 major wars in America. What would that be? Vietnam. So these are the F-4 Phantoms, the jets that flew missions deep into Vietnam and Southeast Asia. So what we're talking about of the whole F-4 Phantom is the thing on the bottom of the fuselage. It looks like a bomb, but in fact, it's an external fuel tank. So it was designed to be extra gallons of fuel so they could get deeper into enemy territory. So they would get into enemy territory, it would run out of fuel. To save weight, they would jettison. They would hit the eject button. That external fuel tank would fall to the jungle floors. It was a cast off. It was a one-time use. Brilliant, resourceful Southeast Asians would find these littered in the jungle. What do they have to do? A lot of them in Southeast Asia. They have to traverse creeks and rivers and waterways. Pokes. They would cut it out and notch these out, and they would make canoes out of them. So this heavy steel fuselage, or excuse me, jet fuel tank in life number 1 becomes the makings of a canoe. And I've been told, not been to Southeast Asia myself, that these still exist, 40, 50, 60 years later, that they're still operable in some circumstances. Because again, highly engineered fuel tank makes a great second life in a low-tech application like a canoe. So again, those are just two historical references. We could name a whole bunch more. Now we get to the academic portion of the program. Just like every good educator, you got an acronym, SAVE. Let's save it. So what do I look at? What should you look at for, could this be repurposed instead of worst case landfill, second worst case recycled? So SAVE, S is standardized. More standardized or uniform a waste stream, the more it's a candidate for repurposing. So let's take lumber. If you see a pile of lumber that's 2x4s, 2x6s, and 2x8s, 22 inches, 33 inches, 87 inches, and 102 inches, that's just a random pile of wood. Now, could be composted, could be sort of repurposed as firewood, of course, but not probably as a structural material just because it's so non-uniform because of all those different sizes I said, versus, hey, here's an industry that takes 2x6s and they cut off and their remnant or their drop is 22 inches. And we have hundreds, if not thousands of these drops, but they're all 22 inches. So then you've got a chance because I've got 500 of these and they are all the same exact size. Then, you could find an industry potentially across the street, across the county, across the state, across the nation. Hey, we need 19-inch 2x6s. So then you're only cutting off 3 inches. So reducing your waste. Again, not always easy to find these matches, but I think it gives you a working example. We just did a deal last week in Illinois, Moline, Illinois, which is the headquarters of Caterpillar. They make a subcontractor makes these wood crates out of 3/8 plywood. Well, their remnant is a 14-inch by 28-inch. So it starts out 4 foot by 8 foot, standard plywood size. Their remnant is 14-inch by 28-inch piece of plywood. Now, not a huge market for that because it's so much smaller, but guess what? We got a whole semi-load of 14-inch by 28-inch pieces, and now we get to have fun. We get to go find, it's kind of like, where's Waldo? Where in the world does somebody need a 3/8-inch, 14-inch by 28-inch piece of plywood in large quantities? But again, because it's standardized, we got a chance. A is availability. Is this a one-time waste stream or is this recurringly available? You think about a couple of examples. Parachutes, the military is going to keep using parachutes. As long as they keep using parachutes, they will no doubt retire them. The mining tires, the very first example that get made as water tanks for cattle. As long as they're doing surface mining with big giant tires, they're going to be slowly retiring them. So again, availability. And so then once you get those repurposes figured out, then you can absorb those waste streams versus there's a lot of waste streams in America that are kind of one time. Hey, Damon, we have 2 semi-loads of this, but once it's gone, it's gone. We're never going to have a second round. So again, billboard advertising. Do you think Disney in Orlando, Florida is going to stop advertising on the signs on the highways? Well, during COVID, they probably slowed down, but when we reopen again at whatever time, they're going to have a bunch more billboards, and then every few months they'll get retired. So kids can do the slip and slide thing for years and years. Is versatility. I would argue this is probably the most important, and we use it actually in conjunction with 3 words, versatility. So we look for things that are generic, versatile, and adaptable. If you remember the slide about a forklift, a boat, and a refrigerator, remember the word I used? I said they're specialized. So to get a very different second life, you want something that's generic, versatile, and adaptable. And what's fun is you take something that's generic, versatile, adaptable. This is a roofing paver. These are on flat roofs, warehouses across the United States. So they have insulation, then they have usually a membrane, a waterproof membrane, which keeps the water out. And then they have something with weight on it. Sometimes it's river rock in a lot of cases. In this case, it's these pavers. Well, it's flat on top, and notice the corrugated or fluting on the bottom. So when the water leaks through, which it's designed to do, then it'll hit those flutes or channels and work its way out to the gutter system, down the street, into the stormwater. But again, generic, versatile, and adaptable. You can show it to different industries and they look at it differently through their own unique lens. So the obvious industry, probably many of you are already thinking, is flat side up. And they, it's pavers for a backyard landscaping project. Instead of throwing them away or crushing them to become aggregate, let's leave them as pavers, put them in the backyard. Interestingly though, you show this to a livestock owner, he's equally interested, but for a very different reason and in a very, very different way. He flips it. He wants that fluting or that corrugation on the top side. So when the cattle, in this case, the pigs, whatever, are standing around in their muck and their mire, these cleats provide traction. So again, it's interesting, generic, versatile, and adaptable. A landscaping industry guy looks at it one way, a livestock owner looks at it opposite. But again, because it's generic, versatile, and adaptable, you got a chance, a really good chance to find that second unrelated industry. E is engineering. We actually talk about 3 words. Again, the trifecta: attributes, characteristics, and engineering. We say ACE: attributes, characteristics, and engineering. What did the product, what did the material do in its first life? Was it UV protected? Was it hollow? Was it magnetic? You know, what did it do in life, number one? Because what you're kind of looking for is, where is another industry that's looking for one or more of those characteristics? Again, the signs, the outdoor advertising signs, billboards. You know, one of the attributes, characteristics is it's waterproof. Well, boom, you got it. You got a hay tarp, you got a construction tarp, you got a pond liner. So again, attributes, characteristics, engineering. A fun example, a water tank. So a galvanized metal tank, standard, you buy it new. Well, the thing about these is a 1,500-pound bull, rodeo cow, could jump in this day one and get upset, and he could dent it and ruin the tank. Interestingly, 2 inches, 3 inches of steel and rubber in these big mining tanks that we already talked about, on these huge pieces of dump truck equipment in the surface mines in Elko, Nevada, Gillette, Wyoming, copper mines in Arizona. Again, Goodyear, Michelin, they didn't put 2 and 3 inches of steel and rubber to make a great stock tank for cattle. They did it to hold up to these 100-ton haul trucks so they don't have blowouts. You know, that would be catastrophic. I mean, somebody would die if these things blew out prematurely. It just so happens that those attributes, characteristics, and engineering, again, a 1,500-pound bull could jump in here, and guess what? His rival could jump in there too. They have a little fist fight, if you will, a horn fight. They're not even going to touch the wall of the tank, would just shake a little bit, but there's so much engineering in those because of Goodyear and Michelin for life number one. It makes a great second life, life number 2, or repurpose. Another fun one is about the end of 30 years, plus or minus. Rail cars, these happen to be flat cars, because of the axles and the different things, they retire these typically. They're cut up into 3-foot chunks. They're steel. They're sent to Cleveland, Ohio. They're melted, and they're sent to a factory in Detroit, and they make a car bumper out of it, or they make a piece of I-beam out of it, or. But again, attributes, characteristics, and engineering. What is this rail car doing? If you think about it, you take the knuckles off. At the end of the day, it's really big, long I-beams spanning 2 axles. It's really a bridge. Looks a little different. You gotta think a little outside the box. Take the axles off, take the hitches off, the knuckles as they call them in the railroad industry, and you have all the makings of a bridge to carry a passenger car, a tractor tire, etc. So again, rather than melting this rail car down, sending it to the steel mill to make a new I-beam, to ship it all the way to Florida to make a new bridge, why not just keep it as a functioning I-beam, little outside the box, little substitutionary thinking. But again, attributes, characteristics, and engineering. So those SAV make things a candidate for repurposing. Doesn't mean that it's going to be commercially successful. Big difference. Just because something's a candidate doesn't mean it's going to be commercially viable. Hot air balloon fabric, generic, versatile, adaptable, colorful. I mean, basically it's the same fabric as the parachutes. We already talked several times about how parachutes could be used, but while the hot air balloon fabric is absolutely a candidate for repurposing, it will never be commercially successful for one weird, obscure reason. Answer is, at end of life, they absolutely reek. You talk to any hot air balloon pipe, you think about all the moisture, all the fumes from the propane. When they drop down, they quickly throw it into the back of the van to get off the private property. They're never allowed to air dry. You talk to any hot air balloon pilot, this fabric is absolutely a vomit bag, just reeks at end of life. What did I say? Number one, repurpose of a cargo military parachute was? Brides at backyard weddings. Could you imagine sitting at a backyard wedding reception and all of a sudden everybody's, man, is that you? Did somebody not wear their deodorant? So again, it's a great candidate, will never be commercially viable. One of my favorites, American Airlines, even though this is a Southwest Airlines plane, American Airlines called, this is multiple years ago, they said, damn it, we have to replace the evacuation slides every year or every 2 years, whatever the FAA rules are. And so this is the hangar in DFW. And I looked at those and I said, oh my gosh, those are a floating party barge behind a speedboat on a lake that would be, I mean, could you imagine all your friends hanging out on that thing and jumping off of it? I mean, a great fun tool. And again, we talked about it under generic, versatile, adaptable. We put this in our newsletter. I had a zookeeper reach out and say, those would make excellent fall pads for when we anesthetize the big animals. And I said, oh my gosh, I love going to the zoo, but I have no idea, you know, what the back room operations are for a zoo. But again, a zookeeper looked at it that way. And I mean, I was just struck by how creative that zookeeper was. So I go home to tell my wife, I said, Tracy, oh my gosh, they're using these, proposing to use these inflatable slides, life number 2, the repurpose, when they anesthetize the big animals. And oh, she got really upset. I mean, even had a tear trickle. She says, Damon, why is that a great repurposing? And she says, Damon, they're killing the big animals. And I said, Tracy, I didn't say euthanize, I said anesthetize. So this is when they put the rhinoceros to sleep. He gets the drugs in and pretty soon he just flops down. So again, a zookeeper fall pad. Great ideas, both cases. Will never be commercially successful. Why? FAA rules are these have to be certifiably destroyed. They have to be shredded. Now, I understand the reasons. They do not want these ending up on some third world airliner. America, FAA deemed these not worthy, not safe, not up to code because of age. So they don't want these ending up on some African airlines and then, oh my gosh, you need it and it doesn't deploy. I get it to an extent. But to an extent, I say, gosh, why shred something up and throw it in the landfill when it could be not reused? That would be going to Africa to put on another jet. Repurposed would be the fall pad for a zoo or the, you know, whatever, the speedboat toy. Escalator handrails, we've all touched these thousands of times in our life. You know, 3-4 inch rubber, any shopping mall, any airport, man, when they take this stuff down, it can be miles and miles and miles. Common repurpose idea is landscape edging. Perfectly smart, it would work perfect, but hypothetically, let's say metal edging at Home Depot at Lowe's might be 10 cents a square foot, or excuse me, a linear foot. This stuff you can't even ship for 10 cents a foot. So this breaks down because of economics, not because it won't work, not because somebody says that it can't work or it has to be shredded up. It just the economics break down. So again, just because things are candidate, just because it works through the grid SAVE doesn't mean it's going to be commercially viable. And that you're in a long-term sort of way are going to be able to keep a lot of it out of the landfill. So kind of wrapping up 3 or 4 more examples. So we've all talked about durable materials, inventories, but let's take this same concept and go a little bigger, a little broader. Food waste, you know, sugar, FDA regulated, you know, it has a shelf life. It might be 12 months. You have to make your product. We took in 30,000 pounds of expired sugar from Coors Brewing, beer brewing. They're going to make a specialty holiday beer. They never made it. And guess what? The magic coat said expired. So any food business gone. What do you do with expired sugar? Obviously you could compost it, but to me, that's kind of recycling. Again, better than landfill, but could you repurpose it? Hocus pocus, found a beekeeper. All 30,000 pounds. He wanted it all. He makes sugar water to supplement his bees' diet when the flowers aren't blooming. I said, sir, just so you understand, this is expired. And he just kind of dumb looked at me and just, you think the bees care? Again, very practical. Bees, it goes out of spec. It can grow moldy. It can sit too long on a Kroger shelf. But it's interesting. So that's really bad for human consumption, for food consumption. But what industry across the street is allowing cheese to naturally age and rot and become stinky because that's the way they want it? Any catfish fishermen in the audience? Trout fishermen? Cheese bait. I mean, very, very common. So again, on one side of the street, it's no longer good, and they're probably taking it to compost, throwing it away. On the other side of the street, they're buying brand new cheese, letting it age so they can make bait out of it. So it's just kind of interesting how both sides of Main Street aren't talking to each other. But a lot of times it's not as simple as it's 3 states away. So, and again, if you're not a fisherman, you don't even think about this. And a lot of people in America aren't fishermen. Real estate. So in salt mines, so Kansas, New York, Western New York, they go in underground, they dig out all the salt, and they're left, when they're done excavating all the salt, they leave. These big cavernous rooms are left underground. Well, you think about attributes, characteristics, and engineering. Stable temperature, stable humidity, ultimate security, hundreds of feet underground. All those attributes, characteristics, they're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars a square foot to build on top of the ground as document storage. So enterprising entrepreneurs in Western New York, Central Kansas will lay claim to these abandoned salt mines. And again, they're taking advantage, becomes low cost document storage with all the attributes, characteristics, and engineering. Again, that they spend hundreds of dollars a square foot on top of the ground to build from scratch, ground up, are just naturally present in these abandoned salt mines. So another FAA, and again, we're poking fun at the FAA, the FDA, all these highly regulated industries. They have a purpose, they have a reason, but again, outside the box, FAA rules are a jar of paint, in this case, to paint an Airbus 350, has to be used within 24 months of manufacture. So at 1 year, 364 days, you can open the can and paint an A350. At 2 years and 1 day, you can't use it. And a lot of these subcontractors, airlines, are sending out as hazardous waste at a great cost to be incinerated. I mean, how crazy, how funny is that? 2 days ago, we could have painted a jetliner, but today, send it out as haz waste. Again, attributes, characteristics, and engineering. Think about this paint. It can handle winds up to 500 miles an hour and it doesn't peel off. It can handle temperature ranges from minus 50 at 35,000 feet to, think about when they take off in Phoenix, Arizona in July, 150, 200 degree heat. Huge temperature ranges, highly, highly engineered paint. But again, at 2 years and 1 day, it's a discard to primary industry. But again, what pig farmer, what warehouse operator wouldn't put this on his building, paint it blue, paint it red? I mean, he's got some highly engineered, extremely expensive paint, life number one. But again, outside the box, we often get asked, as I conclude, get ready for Q&A, does repurposing make more sense economically or environmentally? For the sources, the big companies getting rid of stuff, of course it makes sense environmentally. To people who are resourceful, enterprising, willing to substitute, repurposing presents great value. You can generally save 50 to 75% over purchasing purpose-built new products by being used repurposed products. Again, said another way, repurposing is at the intersection of affordability and sustainability. And with that, appreciate your time. Georgetta, I'll throw it back to you. However you want to do the Q&A.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Carson. Thank you. So we do have one question. Folks, where you see the Q&A at the bottom, you can type in your questions there, and then we'll go through them as they come in. And there is one now that came in from Penny. What new ideas for repurposing for our homes and work? So maybe something more local for us here.
Sure. So again, obviously by many of the examples, they are large scale industrial, if you will. But I think, Penny, it goes back to what I said, you look for things that are generic, versatile, adaptable in a residential home setting. I think about the little spools that the thread comes on. Obviously, you're done with the red thread. There's a little spool. I think a great idea generator, and probably a lot of you know that, is Pinterest is full of repurposing ideas and projects at the residential home level. So if we're the commercial industrial level, Pinterest is the residential home level. So great opportunities to thumb through all the great ideas of things on a residential scale.
Yeah, I just was looking through, and one of the things that got my attention was someone used suitcases. They DIY'd suitcases and made like a nightstand. And then old coins someone made into art. So that's, a fun thing. And someone used a bundt cake holder, and they used it to organize their makeup. So like you said, Pinterest has several great repurposing ideas for home and work. Someone took file cabinets and used it for furniture. Like they just redecorated it and painted it. So all kinds of things there. Does anyone else have any other questions for Damian Carson? And what fabulous ideas, the slip and slide. I'm wondering if that would be expensive for residential folks to buy.
Well, so a big one. I mean, we ship it delivered to your door for about $115. And most of them, so here I'll add an extra if you want to be the ultimate mom or grandma or father or grandfather. Most of them are black on the backside, but a minority, small minority or big minority, are white on the backside. So by day, it's a slip and slide. By night, you string it between two trees, put the white side out, and you have a projector screen for an outdoor movie for your kids or your grandkids. So it's a double repurpose.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to take back the screen when you unshare. Thank you so much, Mr. Carson. I found that really interesting. That was really awesome. So, wow. We have Alex is going to be coming up next, and Alexander Tosca is with our Neighborhood Services Department. And let's see, here, that's the screen there. So I would like to just introduce her to you. She's our Community Programs Administrator for the Neighborhood Improvement and Community Engagement, NICE program. And NICE is building community engagement and improving the fabric of our community, neighborhood by neighborhood. Please welcome Alessandra Tosca. And I'll stop my share. Oh, you're mute, Alex. We can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry.
Hey,
Too many computer screens. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Georgette and everybody out there, you can call me Alex. Feel free to email me or call the Neighborhood Services Department at any time. I really enjoyed the presentation. I thought that it was very interesting to see creative ways of participating and being in the community and helping repurpose objects. I really appreciate Georgette's work with Keep Port St. Lucie Beautiful, because one of the foundations for creating and keeping our neighborhoods vibrant is keeping them clean and keeping them litter free. So adopting a street, adopting a spot is a huge part of our program. Our program was developed about 3 years ago with the creation of the Neighborhood Services Department. And one of the biggest goals that were accomplished was naming the neighborhoods. So for all of you Port St. Lucie residents, if you don't know your name, your neighborhood name, you should look it up. And it's something that we've really been trying to promote, and we've created a pocket map that we have at City Hall that you can come by and get at any time. And we are furthering the initiative of creating identities and neighborhood names by meeting with people through the NICE program with what we call the NICE neighborhood meetings. And those are happening right now in November. So the NICE neighborhood meetings happen twice a year. in the spring and in the fall, May and November. And we work together to open up communication channels between the neighborhoods and the residents and the citizens. We share thoughts. We come together and create plans for what we can do to help you make the neighborhoods more vibrant and incorporate more neighborhood improvement projects in the neighborhoods. So why is it particularly special that I'm here today telling you about this program? One, well, because Georgette allowed me to plug the program and plug having you come to your neighborhood meetings. So check out our website, www.cityofpsl.com/nice, NICE. But the other big reason is sometimes people will ask, well, how are we doing all of these extra little neighborhood improvement projects? You know, that extra bench that we get in front of the school, or those pretty recycle bins, or the wonderful neighborhood signs that we just installed all over and we'll keep on installing as necessary and maintaining with landscaping and little trees. Well, we have a very, very special way that that's funded here at the City of Port St. Lucie, and that is through our recycling program. So not a lot of people know it, but the city negotiated a contract with Waste Pro, which is our solid waste collector and also our yard waste collector and our recycling collector. And we receive back a rebate from recycling because recycling is profitable. And we managed to negotiate to receive back a rebate that we take and we invest and put into a special fund. And that's where I come in. That's where I help the neighborhoods guide their ideas and bring those ideas to council and the city manager and get different projects done. So there are a handful of projects that have been accomplished to date just because the program hasn't been around that long. But the more you participate in your neighborhood meetings, the more you contact me, the more we collaborate together through different neighborhood groups, the more we will develop our neighborhood action plan that is funded by the NICE program, which is funded by your recycling dollars. So the more we support our recycling program, the more we support our contract with Waste Pro, and the more strong our agreement is with them to continue to receive this rebate on a yearly basis. So it's not repurposing, but it's an innovative way that a municipality has worked with a waste collector. And so a lot of people don't know about it. We thought that it would be nice to share. And I really hope that you come out to your neighborhood meeting. If you've missed your meeting because it was the beginning of November, contact me. I can get you information, and we look forward to hosting everybody in May.
Thank you, Alex.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming. Thank you for sharing about NICE. And there's a meeting tomorrow morning too. So that's
Yes.
one neighborhood.
Mhm.
I'm going to go ahead and share again my, because I want to just close with, oops, let's see here. All right. So to wrap up today's presentation, I just challenge everyone to think about how they can get in the arena if they're not already in the arena. I see some attendees that are actually in the Adopt a Street program. So thank you for your hard work in helping keeping our city clean and beautiful. So we appreciate you. And I know we have several committee members on board too. Jenny Tomes is attending today, and Nicole Herrick. Thank you so much. Their time and their investment to help this program and to spread the word goes above and beyond. Jenny Tomes, actually, she's helped facilitate 3 Adopt a Street groups, one for each of her organizations that she's a part of. So that's dedication. And Wayne Landry is our Adopt a Street ambassador. So I know you guys can't speak right now, but we appreciate you and thank you so much. So America's Recycle Day has a challenge, Take the Pledge, and you can find that at the Keep America Beautiful website. It's called Take the Pledge. You're pledging to learn, that you're going to find out what materials are collected for recycling in our community. You're going to act, within the next month. How can you reduce waste that's produced? How can you recycle more and maybe buy products that have recycled content? Share with your neighbors and your friends, encourage folks, encourage family members to, take the pledge with you and to step it up, and let's see what else we can do. I know for me, these, might not be a big deal. I was bad. I used a lot of plastic bottles. I'll still unfortunately need to use them sometimes, but no, every chance we can reduce something a little bit helps our environment down the road in a lot of ways. So join the Adopt a Street program, recycle, repurpose, take the pledge, get involved in your community. If you haven't attended the NICE meeting, I encourage you. It's very interesting. Get to know your neighbors. And we welcome you to contact us. We'd love to hear feedback on what you thought of this very first America Recycles Day virtual presentation. It was a very different thing and a unique information. Mr. Carson brought some information that was quite fascinating. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a fabulous night. Are there any questions for us? Keep Port St. Lucie Beautiful or Alex, any questions? Feel free, you can do your Q&A, type it there. I don't see any questions coming in, but you can contact us anytime through our phone numbers and email that are on the website. We love talking with our residents and we love interacting with you folks. You have great ideas and it takes collaboration. The LEAP talks about partnership. That's with everyone. It's a shared responsibility. So we all help each other do better every day. So thank you so much for attending this virtual presentation. Love to hear some feedback. I wish this was more interactive. I wish we were in person, but we have to do with what we can. And this has been an interesting time. So I hope everyone's doing okay. And we're going to wrap it up. Any questions at all before we end? Well, thank you so much for attending. And I wish you all the very best and have a wonderful day or evening now at this point. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.